automobiles this morning. To automobiles. So this lady, who's 80 years old. Yeah. All right, we're on. We're ready to go. That's all right. We'll call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Good to have everybody here. We'll move the agenda. We're going to move fairly quickly today. There's a major flower service, and some of us have other appointments later. So we're going to try and move this swiftly today. First thing is going to be the agenda as presented, as well as the additions that are outside. I see a further Engineering Services Committee report, as well as a Planning and Development Department report. I understood there was a Public Works report. Is there?
No, committee of the whole.
There's no Public Works report for the public meeting today. All right, so other than those things that have been attached to the, are there any other items to add to the agenda? If not, I will accept the motion on the agenda as presented, moved by the Deputy Mayor. It is seconded by Councillor Aker. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried. Moving then to the minutes of our July 13th meeting. The minutes of July 13th, I'll accept the motion. A move by Councillor Stoyles that they be accepted as presented. It is seconded by Councillor Walsh. Question or comment? Errors or omissions from the minutes of July 13th, 2010. Going once. Twice. Hearing none, I'll call it. All in favor? Motion is carried. Business arising then from the minutes and from the action report. Councillor Lane.
Yes, Your Worship.
Oh, good.
I'm not sure if you're, pardon me?
No, I wondered if your microphone was on, but it was.
Yeah.
I could hear it.
Yeah. I'm not sure if your opening comments were directed at me about keeping the meeting short, but...
No, it was not.
Good. Well, duly noted, but I probably won't listen anyway.
Also duly noted.
Anyway, no, I just wanted to comment on 539, the issue that I brought up at the last meeting about people not cleaning up after their animals.
Yeah.
Just for the information of the people in the Branscombs Pond area, we did have a request to actually put those bags around the Branscombs Pond boardwalk as well.
Right,
And,
it's a good idea.
So Mr. Lush indicated that that would be done. I'm not sure if it's done yet, but if it's not, it certainly will be done. So,
Mr. Lush, has that been done? Not yet. In progress? Yeah, that's a good idea, though. That is. Okay, excellent. Any other business arising? Councillor Aker.
Yes, Your Worship. Item number 537, Park Avenue upgrading. I wonder if we can get an update as to, has Weir's Construction finished the process that will lead them now to finish the paving on Park Avenue?
Completed within 2 weeks, it said.
Yeah,
here.
no, Your Worship, it was 2 weeks to get ready for paving, so they should see some tar going down in the next day or two, so start the paving. 2 weeks to get ready for paving, which was what I said last council meeting.
Yeah.
So before this week, I hope you'll see some asphalt.
So,
That's the plan.
how long is it all going to take to do?
It should take a week and a half, another 2 weeks for the asphalt. But that's weather dependent. So if it rains, if you get any amount of rain, no, you can't do the top course in
Right.
rain.
Right.
So they're on schedule to what we had said last time.
Thank God. This was what? It was well, no. It's just that we've suffered for it. So there's been agony. It really hasn't been the longest, I guess, but there's been agony for it. It's going to be beautiful when it's all done. Thank God. Any other business arising? Anything at all from the action report then that's attached? Hearing none, we'll move right along. Proclamations and correspondence. No proclamations today. We have one piece of correspondence, and this is in regard to, and it's simply a response to our letter offering our support that they change the Excise Tax Act so that GST would not be charged on poppies or poppy wreaths that are used for Remembrance Day ceremonies. I don't know if anybody has a comment on it or anything. It's just, I think, more an FYI piece.
the letter sounds pretty uncommittal to me.
The letter is not going anywhere. The Public Works Committee, we don't have a report, is what I'm told. Next is Community Services. Councillor Walsh, if you would.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll turn on this microphone. First of all, I just want to thank all those involved in making our 20-minute makeover a success for this year, 2010. In May and June at People's Leisure, and we do have an official launch and kickoff for the program. But this year we collected over 5,000 bags of garbage, and that's a lot of litter that will be taken away from our trailways. and in areas that are really not on the main trailways. Areas, for example, behind Westminster, which some of our neighbours cleared up. So it was, again, a great project. I want to thank Tim Hortons again for coming on board as a major sponsor, the people of our own department for their efforts in organizing it and making sure that people have a ready supply of garbage bags, and most importantly, of course, the general public for their participation and support of the project, which has, again, been a great success. Secondly, Your Worship, this year in 2010, we combined for the first time the City Days and the East, West, North celebrations. Fortunately, we had an outstanding weekend of weather, particularly for Sunday. We had warm temperatures, no rain. People were out in droves, as they say, but certainly a huge turnout. They estimate about 13,000 people went through throughout the entire weekend, and I don't know how they do those estimates, but that's what they estimate. I just want to thank a few people. First of all, although he's not here, our director, Ray Osmond, as always, does a tremendous job in pulling together the staff and making sure these things run off smoothly. I want to thank in particular the neighbors who live next to St. David's Fields. This weekend in particular, because of the additional length of the festival with East, West, North, I guess they had to endure a little more traffic over a longer period of time. And of course, as much as we enjoy the entertainment, some people don't. And of course, it is a little disruptive to the routine coming and going of the neighborhood. But for their patience, support, understanding, we salute them and thank them again for their patience. The staff here, Krista Tucker and her team, and I want to mention them, Kendra Lester, Mike Lockman, Megan Drodge, and Lynn Sparks. They did a fabulous job, and of course we were also supported by them and met by them for some of the official functions that we attended ourselves. Roy Locke as chair of City Days, and all of the members of the City Days Committee for their outstanding work and volunteerism, which doesn't just happen over a weekend. It's over many, many months of planning. And of course, our infrastructure public works staff, and in particular Gerard Philpott, who looks after the facilities and maintains that, and Connie Fleming for the communications. So for all who were involved, really, but I think taking a couple of minutes to acknowledge in particular the individuals who drove this project, a huge thank you on behalf of all of the residents of Mount Pearl, and particularly on behalf of the members of council. It was a job well done and very well received. Sure, go ahead. Yeah, absolutely.
Councillor Lane?
Yeah, Your Worship, first of all, I don't think anybody disagrees with the fact that the volunteers and our staff did a great job again this year. But I do have a couple of concerns, and I would like to have this matter referred back to Community Services Committee. I think that certainly the City Days portion of the event went off extremely well, as it does every year. I think that the report, though, can be a little bit misleading. When we're talking about 15,000 people going through, I would suggest that 90% or 95% of those people would have gone through anyway, and have gone through anyway, with the City Days portion of the event, not the East meets West Expo per se. I think moving it up to the field where we did certainly was better than having it in the square. It complemented the event to a certain degree, but my understanding is that some of the vendors that were there really didn't derive a whole lot of business from it, probably will not be returning. I know that we used to have a City Days dance, and now we turned it to a Expo shed party, which was wasn't very well attended at all. And so before we would go on, because this was a 3-year commitment for us, and I would assume that if we were to continue on with the Expo piece, I'm not sure in terms of funding and all that where that would sit. So while I totally agree that it was a great event overall and a great turnout overall, I think that we need to take it back and have a look at the Expo side of it. Another issue that arose from that, which I noticed and was mentioned to me as well, was that it seemed as though, particularly when there was opportunities to acknowledge the sponsors and so on, like at the very end of the night through the laser show. I know the laser show was associated to the Expo, but it was on the field. was recognizing Newfoundland Power, and so it should. But then, even at the acknowledgement in the end, a representative of Newfoundland Power came up on the stage. They talked about those sponsors. I'm not sure if our longtime City Days sponsors and people who've been with City Days for years necessarily got that same attention they normally would, or if they sort of faded behind the expo piece. So from that perspective, I would like it to go back to committee, and again, has no reflection on the volunteers that have worked. It was a great event overall. It was fabulous. But I think that we do need to look at the expo piece, because I can see a report coming out saying that we had 15,000 people to the expo, when the reality of it is, like on that Sunday, for example, the field was full, people were there watching the concert, and if you looked up at the tents, there was absolutely nothing or very little going on. So I think we need to be aware of that piece. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, and your comments certainly are noted, Councillor Lane. I think, in fairness, what we need to do, since this was the first, and I think you're right in terms of the crowd, but no matter when you had this, whether they were at the same time or differently, you're not going to outdo the attendance at a City Days function on Sunday. I mean, that's the magnet event, and that's what attracts the huge crowds.
It is. If I can interrupt for a second, just as a point of information, Councillor Walsh, there will be a full post-mortem of this, because decisions have to be made about summer 2011 and so on. So to Councillor Lane's point, and I apologize for interrupting, the issue of bringing it back to the Community Services Committee is really a step not necessary. This is going to be dealt with by Committee of the Whole and the Community Services Department, and they're going to receive feedback from all of us on all aspects of the thing as we move forward. Councillor Walsh, sorry about that.
No problem, Your Worship. I think we probably will, though, have a debriefing at the committee level.
I'm sure you will.
That's not a bad idea. This report, as you know, came immediately following the festival. So this is a report that doesn't do justice to the details of the success of the event. This is really an acknowledgement of the hard work that people put into it, particularly on the part of our staff and some of the community volunteers and sponsors. But I do think we do need to have a debriefing, but as the Mayor rightly says, because these projects are funded and have to continue to be funded if we're going to participate in them as we have in the past, we do have to have an exclusive report written, and that will be an opportunity provided not just for ourselves as members of council, but senior staff and some of the sponsors who've been around for many years to determine whether or not this is, in fact, as it's presented, a good agenda, good program, good opportunity for them, because it is a real partnership. So, having said that, we'll look at it, and we will certainly make recommendations going forward to make it even bigger and better, and maybe whether it remains in the same format as this year, I guess, remains to be seen. Some other upcoming events, Your Worship. As part of the Arts in the Park series, and this is sponsored by the Association for the Arts in Mount Pearl, Christine Henneberry will be leading an audience in active theatre games on Monday, July 26th at 7 p.m. There will be programs taking place every Monday night, in fact, from July 26th through to the 16th of August. The second event will be on Monday, August 2nd, and the ever-popular Fairweather Cafe with musical entertainment and people outside enjoying some complimentary coffee will be there. And the next couple of weeks after that, the lineups have yet to be announced. But again, it's an ongoing series that's been well received. And it's an opportunity for the Association for the Arts to get their name out there, to partner again with the community, and to feature some of the local artists in the region. Mm-hmm. I also want to mention that there is an outdoor movie night in Centennial Park on the 12th of August. There will be a family featured movie, and we'll start, obviously, at about dusk. This has been fairly well received, in fact, in the last couple of years, so we're going to continue with that as well. And finally, Your Worship, for me, the second installment, $43,351.97 needs to be made to the YWCA for their programming under Northeast Avalon. This is part of the memorandum of understanding that we have with the group, and I'd ask for the permission of council to release those funds, and I so move.
Moved by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor Lane. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion's carried. Thank you. Is that it?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Corporate Services, Paul Lane. Lucy, you're alternate on this committee today? Thank you.
Yes, Your Worship. The first two items here are tax deferrals for low-income earners. The roll numbers are listed. The first is for a deferral of $1,420.80, and the second for $968.48, and that's in accordance with our policies for low-income deferrals. And I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Next, Your Worship, is the June payment register, totaling $1 million.
Councillor Lane, it says May in the report, but it is June, is it?
Well, no, it says June and it says May. Which is it?
It's June, okay.
Okay.
Noted, yep.
All right. So June payment register totaling $1,696,887. I so move.
Moved, seconded by Councillor Stiles. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Next one, Your Worship, we're recommending a $100 donation be provided to Cody Basha, it's amount per resident, who is a member of the Newfoundland Labrador Bantam Fast Pitch team that will be representing Newfoundland at the Eastern Canadian Fast Pitch Championship in Quebec, being held from August 26th to the 29th. Fast pitch, I assume that's softball, yes? Sir?
Yep.
Yeah, I so move.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Next, Your Worship, we're recommending that Council would enter a team into the Mount Pearl Chamber of Commerce annual golf tournament. This is an annual commitment that we do make to them. It's at a cost of $500. And in the event that we do not have a team to put into the event, we will sponsor a hole.
Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried.
Invoices for approval totaling $670,724.28. I so move.
Moved, seconded. Any question or comments? Councillor Stiles.
Number 5, Your Worship. Just
Number
wondering
5.
If that's for the whole laser show for the 3 events? Or do anybody know?
I can't answer that. I would imagine we need Mr. Osmond, do we? You can answer it, Mr. Lewis? That's the City of Mount Pearl's portion?
$24,000 for the lasers.
For the laser show, just for Mount
Wow.
Don't forget, now this is not share. It's not coming out of.
No. Yeah. It was. It's funded from outside sources. It's not the city's money. I know.
So we're in 3 nights.
Yeah.
I think last year the bill was in the area of $20,000, so that
Yeah.
seems right.
Yeah. Okay.
It's interesting
But anyway,
to note.
Councillor Walsh, for the record, as you say, this is not really city money per se. This is money from other sponsorships that paid for this.
Yeah, it's interesting to note, Councillor Lane, as you go down through here.
Yeah.
Robin Hood Bay landfill, $42,000 for the month. Municipal Assessment Agency assessment fees, $68,000. That's not our. Is that our full year? That's a quarter.
It's a quarter. Yeah.
Water consumption for the month of June, $133,920. Well, $134,000 for that. People sometimes don't realize what they actually pay for, the actual stuff, you know. But that's the bills coming due. Anyway, it's great.
Absolutely. Everything costs money, and it keeps going up all the time, and we're certainly aware of that for sure.
To that end, you have moved. Councillor Stiles seconds. Question or comment on any other items? We call it then. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried.
Committee recommends approval for yourself, Your Worship, to attend the East, West, North Expo, the Corner Brook portion. I guess you already attended.
I did so.
This weekend past, but we do need a minute of council to approve, as well as for Councillor Stiles to attend, and in her case it is coming out of professional development and training funds. I so move.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. I was going to report on the trip to Corner Brook under new business. I'm suggesting that I will still do that. That concluded for you, Councillor Lane. Okay, Planning and Land Use Committee, Deputy Mayor Locke. I've got. Oh, you're going outside. I was just going through the kit. If you want to do that, we can. Engineering Services, Councillor Aker, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I got there's 2 items from our committee. The first one is change orders as it relates to the Glacier CP2 and CP4. Total of the change orders, you see them all listed there. $81,556.94 plus HST. Amongst all the orders, they're very small, and there's some negative orders there as well as additions. But there's one there for $80,995.70, and that has to do with revisions that were required to the contract because basically the ground that they're working in was really, really wet, and basically the contract had to be amended to take that into account. So I'd like to move that we approve these change orders totaling $81,556.94, and I so move.
It is moved by Councillor Aker and seconded by Councillor Stoyles. Question or comment on these changes? All those in favor, contrary minded. Motion carried.
And the next item, Your Worship, is a request from Moore Holdings for release of securities in two subdivisions here in Mount Pearl, the Westbrook Landing subdivision as well as Brookhaven Estates. There is no need to retain any securities for Westbrook Landing. All the deficiencies have been cleaned up. And with regards to Brookhaven Estates, the committee is recommending we continue to hold $8,500 as it relates to a water main. Requires installation of a water main between this development and Commonwealth Gardens.
Right.
So our motion is we move that the release of securities in the amount of $85,447.88 be made to Moore Holdings, with $8,500 still being retained for these two subdivisions. And I so move.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, contrary minded.
That's it, Your Worship.
Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Aker. Now, Deputy Mayor Lane, Deputy Mayor Locke, it's you.
All right,
Planning and
thank you,
land
Your Worship. The first item here has to do with the Mount Carson Terrace subdivision,
Yep.
5A, and some renumbering is required here. In March of 2010, Council approved the subdivision agreement and the development permit for this particular phase, known as 5A. However, when we received the letter of credit from the developer, they inadvertently, in their letter of credit, stated as Phase 5. So in order to make sure that the letter of credit match the subdivision development agreement, the department and the committee is recommending that we revise the subdivision development agreement, which reflects the change in the phasing number from Mount Carson Phase 5A to Mount Carson Terrace Phase 5. And then the next phase will be Phase 6 as opposed to Phase 5A and 5B.
Bureaucracy and legalese at its finest.
You got it.
Okay.
So I move.
So what do we got to do? We got to make a motion on it.
Yes, signing that we signed. The council signed the revised subdivision development agreement, and I so move.
It is moved by Deputy Mayor Locke, seconded by Councillor Aker. So this means we have to re-sign them again and do all that again?
Yes.
Because we're changing that one thing?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. All those in favor?
Make sure it's legal.
Contrary minded, motion is carried. We just couldn't have just struck out 5B and 5A and just wrote a 6.
White out wouldn't work. Right?
All right.
All right, the next item here, Your Worship, has to do with some amendments to our development regulations and our municipal plan. And this has to do with 1246 to 1260 Topsail Road. This amendment is required for council to consider a development application from Ron Fougier Associates for proposed expansion to the west of this existing building, Coastal Marine on Topsail Road there, 1246, 1260. As it stands now, the existing building is zoned in one particular zone, and where the extension is to take place, it has a different designation. So the purpose of this, the area of the property that's going to be proposed for the extension to be amended from, right now it's industrial and industrial light, and we want to amend that to mixed use and mixed development, and that will coincide with the zoning and the designation of the existing building. For this change, we did have a briefing session scheduled. It was cancelled, however, because we did not get any responses to the public notices that were sent out, and the amendments were then forwarded to the Department of Municipal Affairs. They have since been released from the department, and as per the Urban and Rural Planning Act, we can now proceed for adoption at Council. So as such, the committee is recommending that pursuant to the Urban and Rural Planning Act, that A, we adopt the Municipal Plan Amendment number 78, 2010, and Development Regulations Amendment number 202, 2010. These are attached in your package. Also that we appoint Jody Saunders as the Commissioner, and finally that we hold a public hearing at 7 p.m. on August 16th, 2010, and I so move.
Moved and seconded. Questions or comments? Anybody? All those in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried.
Thank you, Your Worship. And the next item here has to do with an application for a microbial fermentation facility on 44 Clyde Avenue. I think this was brought forth before. So essentially, a development permit has been issued for this particular discretionary use at 44 Clyde Avenue. and we're just bringing it today now to have it ratified as a public minute. So I'm moving that we accept the development permit that was issued for this particular discretionary use at 44 Clyde Avenue.
I need my memory refreshed. Didn't they not move that? We approved it for a building and they moved it to
Yes, well, right. So,
what are we doing?
so we have to approve this in principle now. I mean, it's already been approved. We've got to ratify it. This is for 44 Clyde Avenue. So basically, in order to get this particular project was subject to an environmental assessment review process that took longer than the proponent had expected. And while they were awaiting the outcome of that process, they managed to find additional property at 14 Clyde Avenue. And there's a new building being constructed there that better suits their needs. Then they asked if this process that they have gone through for 44 Clyde Avenue could simply be transferred to 14 Clyde Avenue. The answer was no. They had to go through the process again. And in order to meet some deadlines for government funding, they needed approval for the new location by yesterday. So we did put a notice out again for the public hearing, and the deadline for submissions was 12 noon. Nothing was received by the deadline. So we need to ratify the approval that was granted for 44 Clyde Avenue today, and then everything is the same. The project has not changed. The only thing that has changed is the location to 14 Clyde Avenue.
Just a quick comment.
Yep.
In all cases, Your Worship, I think, although this one was discretionary, and so it did go through a public consultation process, but I think in all cases, our professional staff issue permits for routine development, and at the subsequent council meeting, we routinely approve those anyway, even though the permits are issued. So this is an ordinary part of the process. Extraordinary in the case that it's discretionary use, but in all cases where issues have been permitted, and we do that all the time. If it's not an issue, the professional staff will issue the permit, and then we approve them at the next meeting of council.
Right. Yep.
I remember there was an issue about moving it. That's all. But I got it.
Well, at one point in time, I thought they were going to go up on Kenmount Road there, actually, weren't they? Because I had a complaint, I had an inquiry from
Yes.
Paradise who was concerned about it.
That's right. Yep.
Search for some time.
Right.
Yeah, huh?
Topsa Road.
Or Topsa Road.
Anyway, so all of this is done. So
Yep.
recommend the application be approved as outlined.
Right.
It is moved.
Both applications now for 44 and
44
for,
and 14.
right.
It is moved and seconded. Does anybody know what we're doing? All in favor? Council reminded. Motion is carried.
Sorry, Your Worship. Did I confound that? Did I confound it?
No. You actually explained it pretty good.
Okay.
But we'll only have one to go.
Right.
That's right.
And I asked of our city planner, our director today, that, so basically this company will have 2 development permits, and if one is not used, it will just expire. So we wanted to get that cleared up, just to have everything on the up and up.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship.
Now, you have a couple of others?
Yeah, just got to get down through the. I wouldn't have to do this if we had our iPad. It's much easier. All right, sorry about the delay here.
We wouldn't have to do it if we had an environmentally friendly committee.
Ho, ho, ho.
I was talking to our IT director, and he tells me that we're delayed getting the iPads because you can't get them. And he said
Right.
to order them
Okay.
online. They were supposed to be available to him, so we're going to be another couple of weeks.
The nice thing is we've used them in committee, though.
I know you have. Some of you have gotten even like special tutorials of the rest.
Yes. Yeah.
When did you use that committee? Is there more?
One at the engineering service committee and one at the planning committee. We had to give
So we have more in, or is it the same?
No, we
two that
shared
me and
them.
Paula were using?
Yeah, we shared them.
Oh,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But he couldn't get the others where he thought he would just be able to go and buy them. So he's had to order them online. We're going to be another couple of weeks. Right?
You got to love technology. It's been in demand, like the iPhones as well. Apparently, there's a.
And then we're going to go paperless. There's the
Right.
solution for the world.
There you go. All right, the next item here is the development permit listing for July 10 to July 23rd, 2010. And we have 16 permits outlined there, and I move that they are accepted as presented.
The development permit list. Seconded, all those in favor, Missy Stiles.
Number 59, and in the commercial 451. I will be abstaining from the 2 of those.
59 and 451. Move the development permit list. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, motion carried. Councilor Stiles abstaining.
And the next item, your
Village
Sorry, Your Worship. The next item has to do with the building permits residential for, again, July 10th to July 23rd. The residential permits during this time total $254,000. For commercial building construction permits for the same time period comes in at $3,225,000, bringing the total for this time period to $3,479,000. And I move that these amounts be accepted as presented.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded, motion is carried.
And that is it, Your Worship, for planning and development.
Okay, all this has been handled, everything's been done. Okay, we're up to new business. Councillor Aker.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to make a comment about the Telly 10, which was run partway through Mount Pearl this past Sunday. Unlike past years, my knee prevented me from participating as a racer, but there was 100... Age, yes, I can identify with that. But there were 187 runners from Mount Pearl, and the race went rather well. There was no accidents. I'd like to thank the city staff and the MEOs who supported the race. In particular, too, we had one fellow named Sergeant John Sloan, too, who ran with he's a member of the Royal Newfoundland Regiment, and he, along with Officer Cadet Harry Little and another John Crew, they ran /walked/hustled in full military gear with 50-pound backpacks, and I think they finished just in a time of over 2 hours. But it was nice to see Canada's finest on parade that day, and congratulations goes out to all of them. And the final thing I want to mention is congratulations to the Mount Pearl Blazers, Senior A baseball semifinalists. They beat Pasadena this past weekend. Now, this is a team that's made up of members from the Knights and the Storm, who play in the St. John's Senior Baseball League. And they'll be playing off against St. John's, who are the 10-time champions in senior baseball. That'll start at St. Pat's this weekend, and then the following weekend, I think there's 3 games at St. Pat's, and the following weekend there could be as many as 4 games here in Mount Pearl. So I'd like to encourage everybody to get out and cheer on the Blazers as they go up against the mightiest city of St. John's. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Exhorting the troops.
And where they're going to go. And I think Council's going to want to get down and share on the boys. Councilor Wall.
Yeah. Just on that, of course, for years and years, the city of Corner Brook, the Barons and the Capitals were the perennial opponents in the provincial baseball final. So, you know, the faces have changed, and of course, now it may be a new rivalry, given the fact that we are the Eastern champs from last year, city champs, I guess, in the league. The only thing I want to mention, Your Worship, is Thursday evening, and this time I do have it right. We have the official opening of the synthetic soccer field. We have the invitations gone out. They're probably actually in the committee of the whole kit, I think. I saw them somewhere in the last day or two. We have the Honourable Diane Whalen and our own Honourable Minister Dave Denine, both invited. Of course, with other dignitaries and people who have supported this project. I guess it would be a nice opportunity as well to just acknowledge that at the time that we were doing this man to my right, Dave Aker, was head of the Soccer Association, and I know played a fairly significant role in driving this forward, along with people like Keith Smith and others. And Dave, I guess for you in particular, but for all of us really, and particularly for the soccer community generally, Thursday will be a fairly important night, and I know a lot of people in the city are looking forward to officially getting the thing rolled out, and it does look beautiful. We've been down there many times before, but it'll be nice to get this done. It seemed like not so long ago when you, Your Worship, were actually turning the sod on that. So this seemed like it moved rather quickly. So we look forward to Thursday night. Worked. Shovel ready.
Thank you, Councilor Ross. We're looking forward to that on Thursday as well. It's going to be a great time to celebrate some of the things going on for the kids. This being one of them. Councilor Stoyle.
I just have a couple of things, Your Worship. One I mentioned is church service this evening over at Holy Sepulchre, and I know it's going to be a lot of traffic in that around this evening, and I know our municipal police was up back and forth all day. I spoke to them up on Topsail Road earlier today. And I also wanted to mention the City Days and East Meets West Expo. Overall, certainly was a great weekend, 2 weeks ago when we had ours. And, of course, I was in Corner Brook, and theirs was certainly successful as well. The Family Day, in particular, in Powers Pond, every year they do a scavenger hunt, and this year the scavenger hunt was geared mostly to information about Mount Pearl and the history of Mount Pearl. And that there was certainly noted that a lot of people around the park was coming and asking us questions, and it certainly made us get involved a bit more during the daytime and getting us to sign the scavenger hunt papers and that. So it was certainly well attended in Powers Pond, as was the Sunday event. And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lane.
Couple of things, Your Worship. First one, and I have spoken to our Director of Community Services, Mr. Osmond, but I guess it really would go to Public Works Committee. But I did mention to Mr. Osmond to have a look into it because he's familiar with plants and gardening and so on. We did have the issue that I think we all saw in the paper a couple of weeks ago about this new plant, a hogweed. I understand it can be pretty nasty, not native to Newfoundland. They say it comes from Asia somewhere, but it can actually cause second-degree burns and blind people and so on if you just touch against it. Apparently, they do have some areas identified in the city of St. John's where they have this stuff growing, and they now have a protocol, a procedure, I guess, for removing it. One of the things, though, that did concern me in that article is that St. John's, while they are dealing with the public areas, they're not going to deal with private areas. And I totally understand that it's not the responsibility of the city of St. John's to go on private property and remove these, but I would have liked to have seen a policy that would say if it's on private property and we know it's there because we want to eradicate this, get rid of it, it's dangerous, we should force the property owner to remove it by utilizing maybe a company or someone who can do it properly, because it is going to spread. According to a biologist that was quoted from MUN, quoted in the paper, he thinks it's a very serious problem. It's after having a big impact right across the country. I understand also that it's out in other parts of the province, Georgetown, and so on, because this stuff can spread, obviously. So, I would like for us to, just, I don't know if we have any here in Mount Pearl, but if the stuff can spread, if it's in St. John's, there's nothing to stop it. It's not going to stop at the border. And it is in other parts of the province, apparently. So, I'd like to know what the Minister of Environment, perhaps, maybe we should just send a note along just to see what they intend on doing, if anything, the province with this. And secondly, we should have our own protocol should we come across this in the city of how we're going to deal with it as well, both in public areas and in private areas. So I would refer that, I guess, to the Public Works Committee through Mr. Phil, and I guess it'll get passed on through Mr. Philpott or so on to look at. The last item I have, Your Worship, and I was somewhat hesitant in bringing this up, but no, I was somewhat hesitant because you have to say, do you really want to go down this road all the time, But me being me, I guess, I'm not going to let it go, and I'll just make a very quick comment. There was an article in the front page of Saturday's paper, Straddling the Border, it was called. That was referring to the issue with the sprung land, and of course quoted in here in very large bold print right in the middle of it, City Manager Ron Penny joked Mount Pearl could have taxes from the parking lot, but St. John's would be taking the taxes from the condominium building. And that is relating to the issue that we have there with, I guess, where St. John's ends, Mount Pearl starts, and so on. And the only comment I'll make is that obviously this commentary speaks to the level of maturity and professionalism that obviously they have down on New Gower Street, and I think that speaks for itself. Well, we can interpret that whatever way we wish, but I guess lack of maturity and professionalism. And so I take exception to that. It certainly does not tie into this whole concept of regional cooperation, being good neighbours and so on, when you're making these types of comments and putting it in the telegram and so on. So I do take exception to it. I think that it says more about the individual who said it, especially in his so-called professional role, than it does about any of us. And the only other comment I would make is I wonder if they will all be laughing and joking about this, perhaps this winter and so on, when residents move in and they discover that they have another Southlands on their hand, and unhappy people because their streets probably are not going to be cleared in 2 or 3 days, like happens in Southlands, and other issues, and maybe they won't be laughing at that point in time. Thank you, Your Worship.
That's twice today. I'll have to start. Wasn't that the agreement? My mother, $20 a pop. Wasn't it every time he? Was it 20? No? I forget. We got to check the minutes on that. We got to see. All right, you're forgiven. I know you're going to pay. Because if my mother is watching online today, like she said she was going to, you can expect an email. Twice.
Let me do this right, Deputy Mayor alone.
Oh, she may be small, but she's feisty, let me tell you. Anyways, thank you, Your Worship. The first item I'd like to bring up, this came up at our committee meeting for planning land use development, had to do with the census long form. And we've all seen that in the media and all the outcry for that. And as we know, or you may have seen in the media, that 20% of the Canadian households receive the long form. The short form, I was a census representative back on the 86 census. The short form has about 8 questions on it, I think, which takes quite a brief time to complete. But it's a more in-depth data collection process for the long form. And again, this was discussed at our committee level. And the data that we would lose, I mean, they're calling it a voluntary form. The data that we would lose is very important from a planning perspective. So we discussed it, and we'd like to, I'd like to ask Council if we could issue a letter to our Member of Parliament, and again, outlining our displeasure or disagreement with the removal of the long form. And again, just to join the group here, I got some information here from the Canadian Institute of Planners. They take action on the census. They also are speaking out against it, and they encouraged all of their members and anyone else who felt strongly enough to contact their members of Parliament to make sure that we don't get rid of the long census form, because Stats Canada does a very good job in data collection, probably one of the best in the world. They're well known worldwide. And again, I think we should do our part and write a letter to speak out against the loss of this long form. So if I can ask Council to do that, I don't know if we want to do it if the Mayor would be willing to.
You need to make a motion.
I'll move then that we issue a letter to our Member of Parliament speaking out against the removal of the long census form.
Seconded by Councillor Aker. A friendly amendment, can we not even amend it? Let's broaden it. I
Okay.
believe that we should also copy the Federation of Municipalities, Newfoundland and Labrador. We should also send a copy through them, through to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities.
Mhm.
Work hand in hand with the planning.
Absolutely.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yep.
I think municipalities in this country have the voice concern over taking something that is now mandatory and valuable and turning it into something that is voluntary and useless.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of with you on it. Anybody else with a comment or a question?
Yes, Your Worship, I do.
Councillor Lake.
I guess the problem I have, Your Worship, is not knowing not being privy to the discussion at the committee. I really don't know if the information that we're losing here is valuable or not, quite frankly, enough to make up my own mind. I really have no idea as to what all the questions are. I mean, one side of it I hear is that it's this long, exhaustive form. It's costing the taxpayers millions and millions of dollars. This is going to save a lot of money, potentially. I don't know. That's one side of the argument that you hear, whether it's right or not. The point is, I don't have the facts, and I really don't know what information we are losing or not losing. I don't know if the rest of the member of council here know, if they've researched it or were privy to this discussion. I wasn't, so I can't vote for something that I don't know what I'm voting for. So I may totally agree with it, but I would just recommend, if it's okay, I mean, can we maybe refer it to committee of the whole or whatever, so we know, or give us a copy of it so I know what I'm voting for, and then that's where I would be too with it.
You want to move a motion to defer?
Well, I don't know if I need to make a motion or not, but okay, well then I would make a motion to defer because I really don't know what I'm voting for.
Second on deferral. Hearing no second on deferral, we'll move back to the motion dies. We'll
Just another couple of items here, Your Worship. I noticed the other evening, we received an email on this, or a comment from the resident a couple of weeks back. I noticed that they were doing the line painting on Ruth Avenue after supper the other evening, when the traffic was a little less intense. And several residents now have asked me why we couldn't arrange to have our paving done instead of, during the busy work days, like they do in some parts of the States, on mainland Canada, why we couldn't have that performed outside the high traffic time frame. So I don't know if that's something that our Infrastructure Public Works Committee can look at, or if Mr. Lush can speak to. I'm sure there's a cost implication here, and that's what I said to the residents that I spoke with. Enormous costs, right? Yeah.
I can speak to it. Largely, it's a cost. Is restricted from a cost point of view. There's not a lot of contractors in the business, so you have to have the contractors that are interested in doing it. You see it in larger cities because there's more contractors and there's more competition. I know I spent a lot of time in Nova Scotia. You don't see it a lot there, and I heard a lot of requests there for it. You don't really see it till you work in bigger centers like Calgary, Toronto, Montreal. That's where people see it. So it really comes back to those contractors have lives too. They do, in real tough situations, they will accommodate us, but it will have an order of magnitude of double the price to do it outside of regular hours. So it comes back to, and you would have a restricted time in which you could perform the work because it gets dark shorter. So it really comes down to cost.
I can add some information, which you may be able to confirm. I've checked this out as well.
Okay.
One of the problems that you've got is when they do this work at night, primarily the climate allows for it. I've spoken to some contractors who say when you want to pour concrete or pavement, you want to do it in the dark, you want to do it when it's 5 degrees. When you walk away from an opportunity to do it when it's 17, finished product is not necessarily going to be as good. Also, all of that work that's being done at night is primarily being done in high traffic, large commercial areas. You went down to your Florida and you went to a community and they were going to tear up, like they've torn up Moore's Drive, my street right now. They're not doing that at 2 a.m. in the morning any more than they're doing it anywhere else, because once you get into a residential area, people, if you do it at night, will go out of their minds over that. There is also apparently a sanitary provision. I understand from a contractor friend who may or may not be that the accident level of people working in the dark under artificial light actually goes up. So all of these things, climate, environment, as well as the reality of the cost of what you're trying to do with a small market, comes into play. But I don't know, maybe we've answered it all, I'm not sure. We have a very short season.
Yeah. No. Well, I did respond with the cost factor to the residents when they inquired. But yeah, that's good detail to have thereafter. Two other issues, Your Worship. I had a resident up on Farrell Drive, right at the top of Farrell Drive, where there's a sort of a sharp turn, right at the top of Nash Crescent, the upper end of Nash Crescent. Right. And she's having difficulty getting out of her driveway, backing up because of the speed of the cars coming around that turn, coming around quickly. And she herself is hearing impaired, and she has an elderly father that visits, and she's always concerned that she can't get out in time, and many times when she backs out and then pulls ahead, there's cars right up in the rear of her car, because again they're traveling at such excessive speeds around the turn. So I suggested, that maybe she want to back into her driveway.
Yeah, that's what she's supposed to do.
But she does it anyways. She said, I do back into my driveway, and the speed is still a concern at that area. And I suggested, and in speaking with her, and I again spoke with Mr. Yevchek, in some areas, I know, for example, in parts of Europe, in St. Pierre, for example, on such turns that are, that may be hazardous in that regard, they have sort of mirrors or reflective devices, not glass mirrors, but mirrors that you could look into and see what was coming around the turn.
Yes, I've seen it.
And this I mentioned this to this resident.
Sharp enough to warrant that one.
Well, it's something that I'd ask someone to have a look into. It's it's a concern for this lady, and she also mentioned that they have one up in, and I haven't been up there to check it out, at the Topsail Beach area, coming out of the Topsail Beach. they do have a similar mirror to see, so you're better able to see. So I just ask if we can bring that forward to Infrastructure Public Works and look into that.
You gonna have a look? That might be a smart idea.
Yeah, might be a solution to that problem. And the last one, and again, I was out for a bike ride enjoying our lovely pathways today, and a resident flagged me down, and because I was on my pedal bike but going a little more slowly, and he said, did you ever think of having bells on your bikes? And I know, Your Worship, that we talked about this with St. Albert and what they have there, and I don't know if that's something that we can initiate there, but they said there are frequent walkers of the trails, and sometimes people whiz on by and startle them. And they said if we just had a little bell, and I know St. Albert provides those to their residents for the use of.
Whistles for the walkers and runners.
You're right, for the rollerbladers and the runners and stuff like that. So again, I thought it was a great idea as well. I'm guilty. I don't have a bell on my bike, but what I typically do is I pedal my pedals backwards, so the sound of the chain sort of alerts the walkers, but not always, because sometimes they're walking with their earbuds in or what have you. So I just throw that out there to maybe our community services, if that's something we can look at the next committee to see.
I know that when St. Albert did it, which is the city that we twinned with, Deputy Mayor, they actually had an 8-foot path. We have a 4-foot one. They actually had a yellow line, and when you were on that path, everybody on their feet were kind of like to the right, and everybody on wheels, be it a biker or a rollerblader, were to the left.
Right.
I think that we would still have a mixed environment, wouldn't we? We're not in a position. So maybe a bell, if we're going to allow bikes and then on the walkways with walkers and joggers, maybe a bell or something is.
Something we can encourage anyways, you know? Yeah.
You know?
Anyways, I throw that out there. Maybe we can talk about it at committee level. Yeah, indeed. That's it for me, Your Worship.
Somebody hit with a plane, actually. Did you see that in the news a few weeks ago? CNN? Beach, because he had earbuds in, the plane was doing a crash landing, actually waved out the person. He said he didn't hear, but he didn't hear the plane coming down. There you go. The bell would work, but not if they had earbuds in.
There you go. One final thought, that is, one final thought from me. I want to report to council on the East Beach, West Beach, North Summer Expo. But we have to decide, by the way, who's going to go represent us in Lavender City. I can't do that for this week. I think we need somebody there. The Corner Brook event was quite a success. We have been tinkering with, as you know, our lab, which Councilor Lane referred to earlier. I think in our postmortem we're going to continue to do that. Their particular layout is excellent. The geography of where they are really works for them. And they had, of course, they had tremendous weather this week. We had a wonderful event. They hosted us like kings. We were treated to the very best. Mayor Greeley and his staff and fellow councilors were all out and about and did their thing. I think it's fair to say Councilor Shaw, we were treated with the utmost of kindness and anything we needed or wanted. They're quite proud of their community. I'm going to, on your behalf, send a cordial note to the mayor and the council to thank them for their kindness to us. But overall, they had a tremendous hit. And with their roots for the expo, they took advantage of passing trade, which we could not in our business. Yeah, right. And so those are some of the challenges that we face. But overall, I got to tell you, a wonderful success for Corner Brook, a huge success, and I'm anticipating it will also be for the North as well. So, you know, it all needs tweaking, even there. But a fantastic event on the weekend. I was honored to be there, and we got to address the crowd and speak to everybody on Friday. I know Councilor Swell got to do that on Wednesday night, on Thursday night as well.